Hello, Year 10. I spent some time looking through your 16-mark questions, and I was thinking of the best way to provide some feedback on the 16-mark questions would be to make a feedback lesson session, put it as a video and upload some homework so you can all work through it at your own pace and all improve your 16-mark questions. They're all largely very good efforts. It's the first 16-mark question we've done for paper 2 for Henry and his ministers, and there are lots of positives there. As you can see, for this 16-mark question feedback lesson, you will definitely need a green pen. Please have one in your hand before you move forward with this lesson. You'll definitely need it. Okay, so the question was that you had to answer was the main change to Henry VIII's system of government and finance in the years 1534 to 40 was the greater role of Parliament. How far do you agree? Explain your answer. 16 marks plus 4 for SPAG. Now, it also says in the question that you can use the following in your answer: statute, law, and government departments. You must also use information of your own. Now, I'm very well aware that this is a very tough question. Lots of big words in there, lots of new vocabulary, and it seems a bit intimidating, but I assure you, absolutely is not when you break it down. Essentially, what the question is asking you is, what was the biggest change to happen in terms of government and money in the economy during these years? And during those years, they were Cromwell's peak years. So what were the big changes that Cromwell made? Was it increasing the role of Parliament, or was it something else that he did? That's essentially what you have to do. What I've put on this slide here is the section of the mark scheme that is for level 4. That's the highest part of the mark scheme. And this is what the examiner would expect for a student to get 13 plus out of 16 for this 16-mark question. They want to see an analytical explanation, directed focus on the question. What they mean by that is they want you to focus on the question. They want you to use the words of the question in your answer. So as you might say, you don't want to waffle. You want to be completely precise and focused and talk about the greater role of Parliament, talk about the system of government and finance. If you use those words in your question, so in your response, then you'll really focus on the question. Now, secondly, it says showing a line of reasoning that is coherent, sustained, and logically structured. What that means, Year 10, is don't change your mind. Once you decide what was the biggest change, whether that's Parliament, whether that's the Privy Council, whether that's the system of finance, you have to keep that argument all the way through your answer. You can't chop and change, so be consistent. Thirdly, it asks for accurate and relevant information. We know that means juicy details. The more juicy details in your answers, then the much better your response will be, and you'll really impress the examiner. It says you have to have criteria for your judgment. So that means you just need to support the conclusion that you're making. If you say that the biggest change was the greater role of Parliament, you have to say why. You have to explain, you have to have a reason for that explanation. All of you can do this. Now, very critically, to get 13 plus, you have to provide information that goes beyond the 2 bullet points there. So it says statute, law, and government departments. So if you are able to provide information that goes beyond those 2 bullet points, then you can access level 4. And that's what we should all be working towards, I think. This was attached to the homework task. This was a bit of a plan for you for this question. Essentially, with this 16-mark question, it's just the same as in crime and punishment. We are just trying to work towards a very basic structure of introduction, argument for, argument against, and a conclusion. If you're able to do those 4 things, then you are absolutely on the right track and you can get a really good grade in this 60-mark question. The introduction can be very, very brief. The conclusion can also be very brief. What needs to be very dominant, what needs to be very big, are your arguments for and arguments against sections in your 16-mark question. And so there's some writing prompts here for you. You may need them towards the end of this feedback session, so you will need to return to this on Show My Homework. And what we're going to do now, Year 10, is we're going to have an annotation extravaganza. You are going to have a green pen in your hand and you're going to be having your 16-mark question out in front of you. What I'd like you to do is, as I'm talking through some student examples, I would like you to annotate on your work, give yourself a tick or a cross where you have shown this skill or where you can improve. What can you borrow from the student examples I'm about to show you to add to and improve your response? It'll be very important for you to do this for the final activity, okay? So first of all, this is an example of one of Dulcie's paragraphs. It says, Cromwell also changed the Royal Council to the Privy Council, showing a pretty significant change in impact. For example, Cromwell made the Privy Council made up of 20 men specifically chosen for their skills. This meant that no individual could dominate the Privy Council, as seen before from Wolsey. This was a good change that was made to the government and very impactful. Now, this is a really great paragraph. In the first sentence, Dulcie states how significant the change to the Privy Council is, and then explains why with juicy details. So the 20 men referring to Cardinal Wolsey, that's excellent. To improve this paragraph, what I would say is that at the end, she could then compare to the other changes that Cromwell makes and say which one is bigger and more important or more impactful. So is it this Privy Council or is it the change to Parliament? You can have a side-by-side comparison and that will show a greater focus on the question and more analysis. So this is really good, but it could be extended and it could be made even better. So if you're with your green pen in hand, look at where you have written in your paragraph the juicy details. Do you have as many as this example has here? He was focused on the question, and then annotate at the end that you need to compare to the other factors within the question. This is an example from Juliet, and this is a brilliant example. It says, this change was the creation of a new government department, each looking after a specific area of revenue. The two most significant were the Court of Augmentations and the Court of First Fruit and Tenths. The Court of Augmentations, created in 1536, dealt with property and income gained from the dissolution of the monasteries. The Court of First Fruit and Tenths, created in 1540, collected a tax from the clergy and that had previously been sent to Rome. These reforms could be seen as an important step forward in how England was governed because Cromwell was developing what we would recognise as modern bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. Excellent. What a miss today. This is a brilliant, brilliant paragraph. As you can see, full of juicy details to support her point that she's making and very focused on the question. Please go through your paragraphs. Are they as detailed? Are they as focused? Similar to Dulcie's example, we can extend this paragraph though. We can compare the changes that Cromwell made to finance with the First Fruit Attempts and the Court of Augmentation, making the country richer, taking money away from the Catholic Church. Is that more important than the Privy Council that we saw in the previous example? Is it more important than the changes to Parliament? Extend that paragraph to improve the analysis. So please annotate your examples accordingly. This is an example from Emmanuel. This is his paragraph about Parliament and the changes to Parliament. So he says, one reason that this statement could be that before the reforms, Parliament was a minor institution, only summoned occasionally to approve new taxation. However, after the reform, Parliament began passing and increasing a number of laws. Only 203 acts were passed between 1509 and 153, and that should say 1530, mainly on taxation. However, between 1532 and 1540, 333 acts were passed. Also, Parliament met more frequently. This led to Parliament having an increased role and had become a partner in government. Now, this is excellent. Emmanuel provides criteria for his point that Parliament became a big institution. It's really, really detailed. What he could do to improve though is say how far he agrees with the statement in his first sentence. So a percentage, or I agree to a large extent, I agree to a small extent. And similar to the previous two examples, if there was a side-by-side comparison with another factor, saying which one is more important, that would be sensational. That would really develop these already brilliant paragraphs. So please annotate if you've got those similar details, give yourself a tick. If you wrote a paragraph on Parliament and you don't have that level of detail, you don't have that level of explanation, then you will need to extend that and borrow from a manual here. Lastly, what I'd like you to do is, based on the feedback that I provided in this feedback session, I'd like you to redraft just one of your paragraphs from your 60-mark question. Please do this in green pen. You know how much I like green pen. A top level paragraph will need to be 100% focused on the question, directly answer the question in your first sentence, say how far you agree that the changes in Parliament or finance were important or not. You can give a percentage if you wish. You need to have a good amount of juicy details in every paragraph, like the examples that I have provided. So try and aim for 2 or 3 juicy details. Do not be vague. And lastly, at the end of your paragraph, after you've explained your point, you need to compare to another factor or other side of the argument to really reach the top level of the mark scheme. So all of you, please, green pen in hand, you've annotated your work. We're now going to redraft and have a super new and improved paragraph. And please share with me your new and improved perfect paragraphs. That would be fantastic to see. Thank you very much, Year 10. Well done on all your hard work.